Hey guys, Dylan here from Kalama Performance Australia. Super excited to have Dave here in Australia with us.
G'day.
G'day, mate. Been lucky enough to. Everyone sort of knows there will be a new generation of Barracuda because we all know you R&D things over a long period of time, and I was lucky enough to spend some time with you February last year, 13 months ago, writing what's about to be released. So it's to get the first Barracuda, which we've all got at the moment, to production took, as we spoke, many years of fine tuning and testing and stuff like that. To now the next generation of Barracuda has taken 18 months from like when you first changed a few little things.
Yep.
I just sort of want to touch on like why do you do this? Like what's your purpose for our industry downwinding, or it doesn't have to be downwinding because we do multi-discipline on the Barracuda. I kind of just want to get an understanding about your purpose, like why do you do what you do?
Well, in a sentence, I love it.
Yeah.
I love the creativity. I love the problem solving, and it motivates me, it drives me, it's my passion, and I would probably be doing the same thing whether people bought my boards or not.
Yeah.
I just love identifying something that either needs to be solved, improved, helps me improve my own personal performance, um, expands the horizons of what I can ride. All of those things are kind of what drives me. It gives me purpose. It is a reason to get up in the morning. It's what I think about when I wake up in the middle of the night. Um, yeah, I'm just extremely passionate about it. Now, in terms of continuing the process on, when I started working on the Barracuda, there almost didn't exist this downwind category. There was a really small handful of us doing it in Hawaii, even smaller number of people doing it in Australia, and it really was a passion project, and I kind of look at it like going to the moon. That seems like a lofty goal, and maybe it's an exaggerated analogy, but the purpose of it is not to get to the moon, it's what it takes to develop to get to the moon.
Yeah.
And so if my goal is to figure out how to make prone downwinding accessible to all these people that were prone foiling at the time that didn't even know downwinding existed, and the feeling and the sensation and the joy I got from going downwinding was the most amazing thing in the world. And I thought, if I can share this with all the guys that prone, including the stand-up, but the stand-up's easier than the prone, right? But if I can get these boards so efficient that you can paddle in laying down, I'll have cracked the code open, and then all these guys that are riding waves can get out in the ocean and experience what that's about. They're going to lose their minds, right? And so with that as sort of my initial target on the drawing board, it became about efficiency and learning all the aspects that make a foil board more efficient. And even though I feel like I scratched the surface and I did okay with the first Barracuda, that process isn't going to stop for me. Let's using that analogy. Okay, I got to the moon, but the moon is the closest thing to us. There's still more planets. There's Mars. There's different universes, and if the process is where I draw my joy from, why the heck would I stop and retire at the moon?
Yeah.
Keep on going, right?
Cool.
And there'll be more technology that needs to be developed to get further into the process or to get further out into space, right? And so that's kind of what got me to the second generation of Barracudas and trying to increase that efficiency. trying to increase and allow more accessibility to more people to, in the end, get out and experience what it's like to ride the ocean. Big blue water, you might see whales, flying fish, turtles, maybe a shark. You're out in the raw wilderness, it kind of feels like to me. And then combine that with the sensations of actually riding swells when you get proficient enough that never stop and are only dictated by how far you can get your car away from the starting point.
Yeah.
It's just, it's amazing. It's amazing. And so I want to share that with everybody.
So when you're saying prone and then stand up, just so people are across it, is the Barracuda a prone board or is it a stand up or is it just a foil board and you just choose what you want to do with it?
So that's a good question. And the answer is yes.
Yeah, it's just it's
It's
a
a foil board.
Yeah, and you choose what you want to do with it.
I ride waves with it. I ride downwind with it.
Yeah.
Flat water pop-ups, wing.
Yeah, flat water winging when it's light wind.
It's a foil board.
Yeah.
I really don't feel like you need to put limitations on it. I hate putting limitations on how I ride, what I can create, and how somebody else should do something.
Yeah.
That's your interpretation. That's your hopefully boundless options to do whatever you want. But this board seems to allow you and allow everybody greater access to what they want to do.
Which I agree on. So, just on that, the current Barracuda, there's 3 sizes, and going into the new generation Barracuda, there's, from memory, 16 sizes. You've done that to make it more accessible for more people? Is that the...
Well, in the first generation Barracuda, it was just getting a concept out there.
Yeah.
And trying to, as simply as possible, create an option for more different body sizes than anything else, making sure everyone had an option. This time around, it's not only taking into consideration different weights, but different riding conditions. So, one way I look at it in terms of there's kind of big water, Maliko, channel crossing, what we do a lot of in Hawaii, right? A second one would be Hood River style, where the bumps are limited to some degree in how big they can get, but they're still fantastic for riding, turning, speed. But all that enjoyment, all that experience is still predicated on, can you get up on foil?
Yeah.
So efficiency at all these different sort of design targets is still the main focus that's going to allow people to maximize their experience on the water of their time, right? So it's big water, it's Hood River, which can get big, overhead at times.
Yeah.
So it's not small. And then
moving
there's
at a different rate than Maliko.
Yeah, and then there's stuff like even Kihei, where maybe you're riding bumps that are mid-shin to knee-high, and you don't need a 9-footer to ride a knee-high bump. So trying to create more design-specific options for the different conditions that people have in their given areas. So that right there diversifies the line and requires more options.
So I'm not going to touch on exact dimensions or anything like that, but just I want to sort of go through the subcategories of the Barracuda. So we have XP, which is extreme performance.
Exactly. So the XPs, in my sort of perspective, or how I view it, is Formula One.
Yeah.
It's the top of the top. Yeah. It's not for everybody. It's for guys that have some experience. But even having said that, in flat water, they're way more stable than you would ever think. And that even carries over into open ocean where it's quite rough. But if flat water and getting up and pumping around is a goal, it's still a legitimate option, right? But I specifically designed it for big water and channel crossings and Maliko and setting your own personal speed records and times and stuff like that.
So my understanding is the bigger the water, like faster moving bumps, you need to ride a smaller foil, but you need to have the board length and speed to engage the stall on that smaller foil. So therefore, that's right why you're riding a longer board, right?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Everything about riding doesn't happen
Until you get up.
if you don't get up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So making it as easy as possible to get up, which now allows you a greater decision of options of what to ride.
Yeah.
And if it's smoking 40, 50 miles an hour and the seas are giant and you're pushing yourself to the limit, you're going to want to ride something that can accommodate that, meaning a small foil, right? You don't get up on small foils unless you get going faster.
Yeah.
That's simple math. So you need a board that maximizes efficiency to get up, and then that length, once you're up, actually smooths out the ride and makes it easier to manage those higher speeds. If you have something shorter and you're going, let's say, 20 plus miles an hour, I'm guessing that's somewhere around 35
Yeah.
K or plus.
Which is quick.
You really need something that is going to smooth everything out and make it possible to even go that fast, because if it's that windy and the swells are that big, the texture of the water is extremely varied, and you need to be able to manage that without getting bucked or tossed or whatever it is with every bump you're cutting through.
And that's called pitch stability, right?
Pitch stability, exactly right.
Which I got to experience when I started riding the longer boards in Maliko. Was how I kind of explain it was, it's like having a dual suspension mountain bike on a really bumpy run. It's actually smooth. You kind of have to experience it to understand it.
Yep.
But after you telling me about it, and then I got to experience it, then I understood.
Yeah, and there's the mechanical sense of what that does. Like you just used the analogy of suspension in your mountain bike, right? It allows you to manage speed easier, bigger bumps, more aggressive conditions. But what does that do to you? What does that do for you? It gives you the confidence to now attack those situations and go faster, because you have that confidence that you know you can ride those conditions.
Yeah, you're excited to pump up and over and down instead of go, I'm going to go off the back of this one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now you're not only riding equipment that allows you to expand your performance limitations, but now you have the confidence to do it.
Yeah.
So that's a big component of this whole thing for me, is creating equipment that not only technically gives you the ability, but gives you the motivation and the drive and the will to feel like you can.
Yeah, cool. Now, then we go into there's two sizes in the XP because it's up here. Then there's the Barracuda range. You've expanded it out to 6 or 8.
Yep.
Can't quite remember.
6.
6, and you've gone like the new version of the current range in one category, and then above that you've gone a little longer and a little narrower for
Yeah, so
the more advanced rider who doesn't necessarily need to go to the XP.
Exactly. So, like I said earlier about designing for different areas and types of conditions, there's an upper 8, I guess you'd say, collection, small, medium, large for different weights. And that takes advantage of all the advancements and technological sort of learnings that I've come to understand with what the length does and all of that, but not having to be a professional level rider to
Yeah.
benefit from all those advancements in design. And so there's an upper 8 category, small, medium, large. There's a lower 8 category that might suffice for like Hood River or things like that. And then even after those two groupings, there's the group that I'm calling the Mini Cudas, and that's in the 7s.
Yeah.
For the guys that maybe speed's not ultimately what they're after, but more maneuverability, but yet will still benefit from all the efficiency and design characteristics of, all the way to the XP.
Yeah. And then so that was the Mini Cuda. How many sizes at the current in Mini Cuda?
So even the Mini Cuda's got 3.
Yeah.
Small, medium, large, to accommodate the different body types. But
Okay. And then there's two more. There's Versatile, so VP.
yep, the
Which
VP.
is kind of like an evolution of the E3, or is it just another variation of the Barracuda?
It has Barracuda DNA. So the VP, Versatile Performance,
Yep.
is really meant as kind of the Swiss Army knife of the whole thing. You can wing it. It's big enough to downwind. If you're a stand-up paddler and you want it for wave riding, you're going to get all the benefits and the efficiency of the longer Barracudas in something that's more conducive to wave riding.
Okay.
I can't remember if I mentioned winging and just flat water pop-ups maybe.
It's like the everything board.
It
sort of
really is. And it's kind of a new concept, so that's why I didn't do small, medium, and large in that yet,
Yeah.
because I want to see if people buy into it
Yeah.
and sort of gravitate towards that versatility. Even though all the boards are sort of meant to have a certain level of versatility, that one dimensionally really is meant to accommodate even a greater swath of versatility because of the added width.
Yeah. There's one, and then there's one more, just real quick. Gabby, can you do a check on the battery, if it's still running? Still good?
You're at 20.
Alright, sweet, it's all good. This will filter into another question or topic, is the big Cuda. So
Yep.
you've created two sizes called the big Cuda for the bigger crew, but where I want to sort of go into the next sort of topic with this topic, I guess you'd say, is our largest size in the new Barracuda's volume is 130 litres. Now, to a lot of people, I'm getting this feedback like, oh, you need 160 litres, you need all this stuff. I want to talk about the volume distribution of the board and how that makes the board more stable and like your bottom shapes and stuff, because some people may have an opinion of 130 is not enough, but the litres is just, from my understanding, is just one component of many components. So into the big Cuda in a second. This week I've been riding the 8.6 by 17.5 at 98 litres, which is less than my current 710. I've found it more stable, if not like the same, or if not more stable in surfing the bay wave. I competed on it in the event and was taking off hundreds of metres further out than anyone else. And then I used it downwinding yesterday, and it was in the like shitty bumps.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it at 2 inches narrower and less volume to be almost, if not the same, if not more stable than my current one.
Yep.
So back to the big Cuda, 8.7, 24, 130 litres. For some people might think that the 130 litres is the point where they go, oh, it's not big enough for me.
It's not adequate, yeah.
Can you explain how the volume distribution makes the board more stable than the dimensions lead you to believe?
So, generally that question is going to come from somebody that's never ridden one of my boards. Okay? And in their experience in the boards they've ridden, 130 liters might not be enough.
Okay.
Okay, so understandable to draw that conclusion. My boards are extremely stable for their volume. Okay, and there's some ingredients that help create that scenario. Length is one of them, but then all the fine details that wrap the board in its design characteristics also enhance stability. And so when I am approached with that question about volume, I really try and make it clear. Worrying about volume is like worrying about what size tires you have on the car and putting a hamster on a wheel in for an engine. It's not what drives the car,
Yeah.
right? Let's figure out what size engine you have. Let's figure out the steering, the size, the length, and all these components that really are important to the success of your car. And yeah, at the end, we're going to put the best tires on that make sense for you and your application, right? I can make you a 100-liter board that I promise you could never stand on. I can make you a 100-liter board that feels like a sidewalk. So to isolate volume as your only decision-making factor in what board to get is silly, straight up.
Yeah.
And it kills me to see all these people say volume is the most important thing. It is not. Okay? Design features, length, width, thickness, all these things make a difference up to the size of your foil. A much bigger foil is going to make it a lot easier to stand on your board. A little teeny foil is going to make it less stable, right? So the whole thing is not predicated on just volume. It's a good indication of how your board is going to float you. It's not an indication of how stable it's going to be.
Processing that. That's really vital information that people are going to get a lot out of. Um, I want to talk a little bit about the bottom shape of the Barracuda. There's lots of different variations of downwind boards out there now. There's double concaves. There's fully rounded bottoms like a log kind of thing. And my understanding is with a rounded bottom board from stand-up racing, it's quick, but it's really unstable. And then if you're trying to apply power to your stroke and you've got, a percentage of your energy going into just keeping the thing staying upright, that's going to hinder on your get up and your performance. So where you've obviously tried a round bottom board, you've tried a double concave or a concave, and what features does the Barracuda have that makes it so stable, so fast, and it all comes together to be the ultimate downwind or paddle up board?
Well, what's interesting, let me kind of take a step back and create a broader visionary understanding of what we're trying to achieve and what needs to be created. At the most basic level, there's a displacement style hull for non-planing applications, and there's a planing style hull for skimming across the surface, right? And those two concepts sort of move and are adapted by boats, sailboats, paddleboards, surfboards, windsurfers, you name it. Almost any craft in the water adopts one of those two philosophies as their starting point for their design, right? What's really unique about foil boarding is it lives and operates within every aspect of both. When you first start paddling, you are essentially operationally a displacement hull. Just prior to planing and accelerating to a speed where your craft might skim across the surface, hopefully your foil has engaged and you can come up off the water, right? So now you're taking into account a design feature that no other craft really has to design around, and that's leaving the surface that you're designing for. All right? And so now, if you're doing it right, you're above the water. But inherently, you are going to touch down at certain points of your riding. And if you're going at foil speed, you're going at a speed that would be more kind of understood as a planing hull. And so now there has to be planing hull characteristics in your foil board. Are you sure we're okay with that?
We'll pick it up.
So you're designing around planing hull characteristics that have to first work as a displacement, leave the water as efficiently as possible, and pull up as little water as you can pull up. Because when your board's rising up out of the water, all that concave nonsense, all these other aspects that people are putting in that come from probably more planing hull craft, actually pull water up with the board. Yeah, now it eventually lets it go, but in the process of leaving the surface of the water, are you pulling water up with you, or are you allowing the board to come up with as little resistance and gripping of the water, right? And if you do that, you come up easier, which allows you to use the smaller foils, right? Now, touching down. When you touch down, is your board going to grab onto the water again and create more drag, and that results in that kind of throwing forward? A lot of the holes out there are going to do that.
Yeah.
I take that into account. I try and design around it, and then letting or releasing the water again at planing hole speeds, so that you don't pull a bunch of water up with you, is another consideration. So I really look at the designing criteria and all these things you're trying to design around are extremely complicated, extremely diverse, because we travel through so many different applications of hull design to foil. And, I guess in a sentence you can say I've taken all my experience of all the different craft I've ridden and how each one of them interacts with the water at varying speeds, because that's a hugely important component, because so many of the features that you can create and incorporate into a board optimize maybe one speed or one velocity, right? But the foil board operates within so many different speeds, and like I said, displacement in one scenario, planing in another scenario, releasing of the water in another scenario. So all my accumulative experiences with windsurfers and paddle boards and stand-ups and canoes and yada 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 on down the line, I draw upon that sort of design history to formulate what I think is going to work best in all those different categories of usage.
And I think that's a real important statement you made about all the different applications of water sports you've done, to then put it all that information into a board like this over such a significant amount of time, but also with a variation of team riders on different foil brands and different places around the world to create this is really special, because there's a lot of downwind boards out there that, sure, they work, but do they work as efficiently as something that has been R&D'd as vigorously as yours? So,
I mean, I think, let's get real. I'm not smarter than anybody else, if I'm being real. I have just been going through these processes that have allowed me to gain and accumulate more knowledge.
yeah.
there's guys probably a lot smarter than me than any in any given category of design would do much better, right? But that's what's unique about the foil board is it's not one category.
Yeah.
It's an accumulation of, I mean, I want to say almost every aspect of hull design.
Yeah.
Displacement, planing, and then adding the releasing of water. Non-motorized is another factor you need to take into consideration. We're self-powered, except for the advent of
Foil drive.
the new power assist
Yeah.
foiling, but even they benefit from maximum efficiency.
Yeah, if you ride one of them power assists on a Barracuda, you're probably going to get another 45 minutes out of your battery.
Exactly.
Because it's
Exactly.
more efficient again.
So, I don't claim to be the smartest designer. I just have been really fortunate to gone through so many iterations of water sports that I have a really wide swath of information I've been exposed to now incorporate into essentially a new sport.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. Now, going to get into the crunch time of the features of the board that's different to the previous. So there was the big question about box placement, box track length. The previous one had 10-inch boxes.
Mhm.
The new one has 13.
13, yeah.
13-inch boxes. Now, you ride GoFoil, I ride Lift. I've been riding in the surf and downwinding on a 120 and a 150.
Mhm.
And I'm not all the way forward, and the board feels, the balance thing, it feels perfectly balanced. So the new Barracuda, you would say, is now even more compatible with the majority of foil brands.
Absolutely. I'm essentially placing the back of the box, I should say.
Yeah, we measure from the back of the box to the back of the
Back of the board to back of the box is my reference point of how I place the box. I generally am where I place my mast to ride my equipment is at the very back of the box, and I very seldom come across anybody that's further back than me. So I use myself as a reference for where the back of the box should be, and how the board, in my eyes, should be ridden. In 98% of the cases, I think a 10-inch box, based upon what I've seen from the various brands, that would accommodate, right? But people have it in their mind that they need to be even further forward and have a greater movement possibility. So responding to that desire to have more option, we've incorporated the 13-inch box. So now you've got even 3 more inches of variability to put your mast where you want. And it, to a certain degree, it's really a personal preference thing. There is no real right or wrong on where you put your mast. It's where you like it, right? So I understand that and have tried to respond to accommodate everybody's preferences and where they like the mast in their board. So yeah, I'm glad that hopefully box placement will not be a barrier for anybody and questioning whether this board is good for them.
Okay. Now, good news is these are available in the US and Hawaii in March, mid to late March.
Yep.
2024. Australia, we're going to see them in May, most likely. So, with the variants in sizes, that'll all be released on the website soon, I would imagine.
Maybe not. I like to play my cards pretty close to the chest. But even speaking to that, people might wonder, well, why the heck isn't he sharing this information? And how come I can't get it? All the other brands do that, right? Because, quite honestly, I'm not trying to market these boards how everybody else does. I firmly believe if I've got to tell you how great these boards are, the boards aren't good enough. These boards should be able to tell you how good they are. Listen to them.
Yeah.
Listen to your friend that you trust, that you share time in the water with. Listen to people that you know, what they like, what they ride, and judge for yourself from that. If I've got to try and sell you, then that's exactly all I'm doing. It could be a widget at that point. I'm just trying to sell you something to make money. This isn't about money for me. This is about a passion that, first of all, I make for myself.
Yeah.
I want the best stuff. I want a downwind foil. I want to use a smaller foil. All those things that are in that board are first there because of me, right? And I want to make those available to other people as well, because downwind foiling or catching a wave early or all these other things that foiling entails are amazingly fun, right? I'm not a salesman. And if I got to sell you, then this business is probably going to fail. But if I keep making boards that make this sport more fun than anybody else, hopefully that's enough. And hopefully someone you know or you trust rides one of these boards and you'll believe them. And in that scenario, the board's selling itself. And that's my goal of how I'm going to approach selling these boards.
They definitely do speak for themselves. The first wave I got on the new one, it was just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So,
I don't have 20 people in a corporate office that are all trying to feed their families, and I need to get hundreds of thousands of these things out the door. I don't have to do that. I'm as lean and mean, as tight as you can possibly be, because I don't want to be in an office at 2 p.m. talking to China about why the colors are wrong.
Yeah.
I want to be out in the water with everybody else doing a Maliko run.
Yeah.
So it's simple, it's just high quality, and it's as functional as it can possibly be.
Well, with all that talk, let's wrap this up and let's go foiling.
That's why we're doing this.
So, well, once again, thanks for joining me here in Australia, and let's get out there.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dylan.
Thank you. Yeah, well, mate.